Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, we have Ray Molony, editor of Lux Review, talking about what's going to happen, Greg.
We need to know about the future of lighting, and now more so than ever with all that's gone on and all the confusion, we need to figure out where it's headed. And he
Yeah,
had some good points, and we dove into those, and I thought it was a great discussion.
it got technical, it got spiritual, it got all the great things about the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast that I think our listeners love, happened on this one. So, Ray, thank you for coming on the show. But before we get to it, the starfish emerges from the ocean. Oh, I'm not going to tell the story. Sorry. You got to go to satco.com. That's satco.com. Hey, check out this documentary on the founder of Satco, Herbert Gilden, the starfish. Video will be in the link to the podcast as well. You can check it out there. But what a great company Satco is. What a history.
Yeah, and this documentary and this talk we're having right now is not necessarily focused on a product, but you'll see where they came from as a company and why they are so important to the lighting industry and why they are leaders in the lighting industry, why they have great product, great people, everything you can ask where they have it. And you'll see that if you watch this documentary. So highly suggest doing it.
And also, they're going to name their lighting control system the Starfish. That's what I heard. Ooh, a little birdie landed on
That
my
might
shoulder
happen.
and told me that. So, but you got to go to satco.com. They're doing the right thing. They're doing the right thing for years and decades, man. Check them out. But for right now, don't forget, NAILD, National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, Satco, a long-time vendor member of NAILD, great supporter. Why aren't you in? Why aren't you in? Come on, folks, join NAILD. If you're a lighting distributor, now is the time. But for right now, check out Ray Molony, editor of the Lux Review. Get a grip on lighting. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Ray.
Great, thanks for having me. I'm very honored. I've been admiring what you guys are doing, and keeping that communication, that dialogue, and it's more important than ever, I think, now in these troubled times we live in.
Yeah, you wrote an article for Lux Review. I'm just going to dive
Mm-hmm.
right into it because
Sure.
I think it's worth getting into. I think there's a lot of different ways we can go. 8 effects of the crisis on the lighting sector in specifics. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been losing familiar brands for long before COVID-19 came along, Ray.
That's correct. We have. There's been, creative destruction, should we say,
Mm-hmm.
since LEDs came along, and LEDs accelerated that process, and we've had new brands emerge. Come and go, rise and decline, and we've had new players come along. We've had people almost part the scene. But this will accelerate that because I think the transition to LEDs hadn't fully happened for a lot of companies. They still had a lot of legacy baggage. Their structures were geared around the old way of doing things, the replacement market, long product cycles, all the rest of it. And they were still in that transition phase of moving fully to the LED world with the margins at the way they are and the way of operating. And I think this crisis has come along at a bad time for the lighting industry. That's my essential point.
Some of these companies are some of the most storied American and European brands. Like over 100 years history in one industry.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
do you have any sense of sadness about that? Is there any? I'm not talking about personal, but just like looking at an industry and saying, man, that's sort of a tragedy for that industry in a way.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget Kodak were around a long time as well, weren't
Sure.
they? We've lost many big brands in many in many sectors. Yes, you've got to have a lot of sympathy for the big boys that the post-war lighting companies that came out. The ones back, you can go back further, with back to the days of Edison and the light bulb and all that.
Sure.
Oh, the history. Nobody loves the history of it. I shed tears when they knocked down a light bulb factory, but yes, even just around London where I am, they invented metal halide lamps. Not 50 miles outside the high pressure sodium, factory was first in the Thorn factory. There's loads of history here.
Thorn, yeah.
Going back as long as you want to. But you can't be a prisoner of history. But it's it is. You've got to feel for those companies to the replacement light bulb model was such a significant model and platform for these businesses, and just to lose that is just
it's taken for granted. So the lighting business was like a pseudo subscription business. It wasn't a subscription. It wasn't, but it kind of was.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know from the manufacturing level, which I'm sure it was the same. But Greg and I, prior to the LED boom, we could literally predict our sales month to month of how many light bulbs we were going to sell, whether that was number of SKUs or revenue or volume. It was super predictable. You sold this many lights, and then you could even sign up customers to pre-buy stuff in advance. Like, it was so predictable. And now you introduce the complete opposite. That is so taken for granted, Ray, that the replacement lamp.
You have Osram, don't sell lamps, and they don't sell luminaires. So if I told you 5 years ago you're going to have the second biggest name in the lighting industry not selling lighting fixtures or light bulbs, you think I was crazy.
Well, I think one of the things I want to ask about is you're saying the word brand, and I think that's pretty key in this topic. Is it the brand is going to change? The company, the big three that we know about have all changed names in terms of lighting.
Yeah,
but they're still around. Yeah. Are you thinking that these companies will be gone, or just brands will change like they have because of this crisis?
Oh yeah, I mean, a brand has length and brands will continue if they have value. The Kodak brand, I think, is still going as a brand of printer. Somebody's bought it and somebody's using it. I see Westinghouse is, somebody's bought that and they're putting it on light bulbs, and good luck to them. That has value. The Philips brand is being lost because, as you know, the parent company have said, they're licensing it to the lighting division, and that will eventually go, and hence the Signify situation. There's no sentimentality in business, is there really? So but yeah, it is. It's just changed. You have to get used to that creative destruction, as I say.
The flight to quality. Now I don't know if I agree or disagree about that.
Yeah.
I wonder, what makes your instincts think that it's going to be a flight to quality? Is it something to do with domestic manufacturing? That is so, I think the association between domestic manufacturing, say in America rather than China, and quality is not 100% legit. You understand what I mean? I don't think that things made in America are necessarily better than things made in China in 2020. So what is it that why is your instincts telling you that there's going to be a flight to quality by the end user person that pays the bill? What makes you think that?
I think that's a short-term play. I think that is, and it's purely because of this crisis. Who's going to be around? Because a lot of lighting companies in the mid-size are financially fragile, frankly. They don't have the capital resources to keep going for a long time. Should this crisis continue, should the government incentives, the furloughing schemes, the job retention schemes, the loans, some companies can handle a significant loss of revenue for many, many months. And if you put them on a spec and you want you to be supported by them, you got to take a view. I'm going to put in 1,000 of these luminaires in a building. I want somebody who's, what's the point of a 5-year warranty if you don't even know if the company's going to be around in 1 year? So
that's always been true, though. That's always been true for the last 10 years. I mean, that's not a COVID thing, though.
For the last 10 years, and companies like Signify play in it, and good luck to them. They should do, But I think in this time, it's more, it's going to benefit the Igazzinis of this world, as I said, and I've heard people have told me that they're now changing who they're putting on a spec because there's rumors going around about certain brands, and nobody wants to be put short. So, as I say, I think that's a short-term thing, and people will. We'll forget about it. But, here's the thing. No matter what metric you look at in the UK, no matter what metric you look at, the lighting industry is down over 50%. whether that's returns for the you have to give in returns when you're doing waste in Europe. When you're doing under the waste equipment regulations, you have to file returns, blah blah blah. And also there's the Lighting Industry Association. People file returns there about their sales, etc. And any figure you look at, it's between the lighting industry is operating at around 40 to 50% of its standard capacity. And so it's taken a big hit. Not as bad as airlines,
Sure.
not as bad as Hilton hotels, but it's still a big hit. And that can only go on so long. Even with all the government help, that's not a sustainable situation. That's
No,
not a
it's not.
sustainable situation. So and projects are just not going on hold. I know you guys try to be optimistic, but I'm sorry, I'm going to be Mr. Grumster today because it isn't pretty. It isn't pretty. I think yes, brands will survive. Yes, people will use their creativity and to come up with new solutions and be innovative. But we have to get through a difficult period, and I don't envy the guys and the challenges they're facing day to day in making payroll and worrying. I think I'm also hearing that people of a certain age are just saying, well, I don't have the stomach for the fight. I'm going to just people are retiring early and just stepping out of the business. So
I think in a way it's a good thing though. If there is a flight to quality, I kind of welcome that in a way. I'm sick of a lot of the junk that's in the marketplace, and hopefully, if anything, this filters it out to some degree. Maybe it'll come back, but I'd rather have it stay steady.
I think the industry's been dragged down by, like, all of us have been dragged down to like LED tube is this price, and they're all the incentive programs combined with accreditation agencies and all this sort of stuff have really confused the end user as to where quality is and what quality is. And if you can go over to China with $50,000 and buy a tube accredited and slap a brand on it and bring it over, and it's in an incentive program or the fixture's in an incentive program, the consumer is very confused by that, the end user. Oh, well, why would I get a $100 rebate for this one and a $100 rebate for that one? Well, what's the difference between the two of them then? It must be the same thing. I think the industry could use what's the right term? A threshing, a removing of certain things. 50, 60% down, that's a little more than that, though. I think there's going to be a lot of dead quality bodies out there, too. So,
yeah, I agree. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with talking about education. Why buy one luminaire over another luminaire?
Sure.
I'm buying quality. I'm getting the more you understand, the more you pay for something. It's like any wine, cars. The more you understand about it, and why am I paying that extra price? The worry has to be that the people who you did a lot of the education, the Philips of this world, the Osrams of this world, are not doing it anything like the extent they did before. They educated people. They were fantastic, and then those people left Philips, went on, and they did a lot of that legwork. What is light quality? And they explained about it. And that is unfortunately at the same time that you have Chinese product driving down prices, you have greater levels of less understanding among customers about light quality, sadly.
Company owners will focus on basics. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think it really applies to lighting. I think everyone listening to this is, thinking, well, we laid off some staff, we're shifting inventory, we're trying to preserve capital. What I'm concerned about, though, is will that cascade through all industries, and so we enter an era as a whole of capital preservation, and then people aren't doing lighting projects anymore.
Oh, I think it's more applicable to customers. Customers are focusing on basics. So the facility manager at a university who you were trying to interest in some refurbishing his outdoor lighting, well, his whole focus is, how do we get social distancing in the university? What do I have to change? What screens do I have to put up? How do I reconfigure this? He's getting beaten up by management how can we get this fixed? And every business is trying to figure out, from a cinema to a restaurant, how do we make this work and get people in, because they now realize, the lockdown is going to be lifted. It was certainly on this side of the pond slowly, and it's going to be difficult. And that, they're not. I know it's a perfect time to upgrade your lighting. There's nobody in the schools. There's nobody in the universities. But the focus is not there. Unfortunately, so that's another whammy that we're having to deal with, unfortunately.
That makes it harder to sell. We talk about all the controls and the color changing and all that. People aren't even thinking about that. Like, I need my light to work, and I need to focus on everything else. I agree.
Yes. But that won't be there forever, but it's definitely the case at the moment. And as I say in my piece, the lighting, and you look at the lighting industry, what's been driving innovation in it? It's been retail. Retail's been great for the lighting industry. Retailers used to, and you used to see it. It was very common. There was a skip outside a store full of new light fittings. Help yourself,
Yeah.
And then they would refurb it, because they were the first guys to understand light quality. They understood about the link between merchandise, the lighting of it, and sales. And the ceramic metal halide lamp was invented for those guys, and they were happy to spend decent money on it. Retail was a great driver for the lighting industry.
How exciting was ceramic metal halide when it came out?
How exciting was it? Oh my God, I remember going to Hanover when they came out, or Frankfurt. Oh my God, then GE got one, and they had a different shape. You had a tubular one, you had an elliptical one. Oh my God, the cat would get caught in the corner. We were all obsessed. Do you remember?
Yeah, for sure.
We were obsessed by halide lamps. Oh, we thought it was everything. That was exciting times.
Sure,
I remember Maine. Do you remember Maine's halogen? You don't look old enough, but that was a big deal when that came out. That was the GU10. That was exciting. So, and then so
I actually going to push back on your number 4, because
what was my number 4?
Payment terms will lengthen. Okay, I agree with you. Payment terms will lengthen, but they'll also shorten. So, like, it'll go both ways. Right? So, for example, I've taken tons of customers and turned them into prepaid customers on my end. Like, we're not shipping to you. You got to pay right now.
Oh, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But are they getting discounts? That's my question.
I've raised my prices and shortened my terms. Because there's a lot of companies that are closed. People can't get light bulbs right now. So we raised our prices and shortened our terms. So companies are on prepay. So the only people that were like, we used to give terms to restaurants, like that's crazy. Spas, are you kidding me? We used to give terms to all these. We're a lighting distributor too.
Restaurants have great cash flow. I mean,
So we used to give terms to these companies, right? So restaurants, salons, bars, we'd be shipping. This guy owned 13 bars, we'd be shipping them light bulbs. We've cut their terms. They have to prepay now, and their prices are higher. So I think that sword cuts both ways.
Yeah. Well, actually, in an Lighting Industry Association survey of 400 companies in the UK, 35% were saying that they were getting customers pushing for longer and had given longer terms. However, there was also a lot of evidence, anecdotal evidence, that a lot of people were getting taking early payments, but on people asking for early payment discounts and all the rest of it. So yes, you're right. It's I agree with you that both of those things are happening at the same time.
But what I noticed here was you wrote that it'll be difficult to reverse. It's interesting. I think you're right about that. Once a customer starts to take 60 or 90 days to pay, or 120 days to pay, they seem to want to keep it that way as long as possible.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? You'd have to give them an incentive to go back, wouldn't you? You'd have to say, okay, well, exactly.
Discount for paying quicker or whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
That's true.
I'm trying to see. I'm looking for silver linings, but it's true. There are sectors. There are absolutely sectors that will continue to thrive. And they include UVC is massive interest in UVC, massive interest in this side of the pond. However, that is a dangerous technology, and we need to get our heads around it. How do you use it safely in a space? Because UVC. You don't even get UVC from the sun. Our atmosphere takes it out.
Yeah,
You
that's
get
called the
UVC.
ozone layer. The ozone layer
That's right.
protects
Yes.
us from
Yes.
UVC light.
Yes. Very bad. UVC will just gobble you. I mean, but also the damage it will do to surfaces and,
For sure.
Yeah.
So
So
I want to comment on that though. I had a customer
Yeah.
call in, Greg, and Ray. It's crazy. Calls me up, and we've been advertising for UVC light bulbs because we sell UVC light bulbs, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So we got a call, and it's a lady, and there's this law office, and she's like, "We want a price to put UVC lighting all through our office." And I'm like, "In the air ducts? In the air ducts? Or in the
That's
main part
insane.
of the office?"
Just everywhere.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, this is really dangerous, actually.
Whoa.
Are you crazy? You're going to have sunburn in about 2 minutes, and you're going to be blind in about an hour if you do this, right?
Whoa.
So, it's I'm like, I can't, I just told her, like, she's like, no, there's a lot of pressure. We want to get back to the office, but we need it to be completely sanitized. And I'm like, that's not, and I didn't answer. I'm not in the position, I'm a light bulb salesman. I'm not in a position where I tell people what's what with sanitization and disinfection. But I was thinking to myself, like, that's completely insane. Like, from a lighting guy's perspective, like maybe in the air ducts, you're going to put some in the air ducts to, that'll, kill the bacteria in the air, the circulated air. But to be shining UVC light on areas like not surgical rooms where people know what's going on, they know they're disinfecting now, but in a general space where a janitor could be walking through, where people could be sitting there doing this sounds like a really bad idea to me.
Oh, it's crazy. There shouldn't be anybody in the room. There shouldn't be anybody in a space where there's UVC. It's just it's crazy. Yeah, and I think the future will be where the UVCs are concealed. I think that has to be the only way forward. So is that a lighting industry gig or not? I don't know.
UVC is not, it's kind of like the lighting industry has all these segments, and UV light is kind of its own segment in a way.
Correct. I know they were let to get on with it, but now it's exploding. Everybody's getting interested in it. And I know people who are, actively making product for it and explore. Yeah, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of good stuff as well, where people are taking real care as to how do you have an interlock system so when the door is shut, it's connected to lighting. There's nobody there, then it comes on, and how do you do that? So people are looking at that.
I like that optimistically. I like your number 5 where you say local production will be an advantage. I like that. Like, my gut instinct says, well, that's really cool that, there's going to be, but I'm not so sure that the trend is to reverse globalization. I think there's 2 competing models right now with the pandemic that are way beyond lighting. But they're going to affect all these different industries. And one of those things is going to be, and we're not sure who's going to win. One of them is going to be like a reverse globalization, where countries are going to start cutting down, where things come from, who moves where, and this is going to make that local production an advantage. The other sort of force that's at play is like even greater globalization, even more global capacity. Why do your instincts say that you think it's going to be local? Like, is that what you're saying, is that, we're going to turn inward a little bit, and we're going to pay more for stuff produced locally? Why does your gut instinct tell you that, Ray?
I mean, I think that may be a short-term thing, but I think it will be a thing that people will shorten their supply chains, simplify their supply chains in the next few years. I think it's obvious. I think, it just this pandemic has shown how exposed we are, and all businesses are to the complex globalized supply chain. So a big problem with manufacturers in the UK is they just couldn't, in the last few months, and that has contributed to the reduction in capacity, is they just can't get stuff. They can't even get stuff. They couldn't even get stuff from Italy, let alone China. And lead times went up. So this, a lot of that has just been a problem. And I think short term, over the next few years, you will see shorter supply chains. But customers want cheap luminaires. They want cheap lighting. And we've, as an industry, have taught them that that's okay.
Yes.
And unless we educate them about it, that's going to stay, And well, I think it wasn't just educated. It was also the Chinese. Let's face it, the Chinese government took a major decision back in the day that they wanted to be a major player in LED lighting, and they encouraged they gave free land. They gave. I mean, literally buy one get one free on those MVOs. Those machines for making LEDs.
Sure.
They did all sorts of incentives
long before LEDs. So in 1979. When I was going to say Hu Jintao, but I'm thinking Deng Xiaoping, when he opened up, one of the first industries that they went after was light bulbs. One of the first ones long before LEDs. You're talking 1979. One of the first products that was truly globalized was incandescent and halogen light bulbs. That was one of the first things that the Chinese government wanted to dominate. They're like, that's a strategic industry. Let's get factories that build those way cheaper, and we'll take that industry over. And they did it. They actually took it over, and that was a plan. And it wasn't what when people talk about the lighting industry, they talk about LEDs. But what happened was, what you saw long before LEDs came along, what you saw was a technology transfer from the North America and Europe to China. And in the name of globalization and low price, and what left was basically roots were torn out of Europe and North America. Manufacturing roots were literally torn up.
Literally put on a ship. I've seen machinery go on a ship and be sent to China. Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
and this was a massive technology transfer. And the deal was that you had to give them their intellectual property for free. Like, that was the deal. Like, this was insane for us to do this.
Yes. It was where those individual decisions. It was the right individual decision, but the wrong collective decision. And a next generation is paying the price for what happened back then. And I think
I have a theory, Ray. So in social sciences, in the social sciences, and we talked to Rebecca Costa about this, Greg, a couple weeks ago. Whatever the solution to a problem is becomes the next problem. Whatever it is.
I like that. I'm going to pass it off as my own. That's a great. Yes.
No, so for example, it's like what happened in the 60s and 70s, what emerged after the post-war boom was this idea that we have to increase shareholder value. That's the only principle that American corporate capitalism was based on. Okay?
Correct.
We have to increase shareholder value. You don't have any stake in the society, who built the roads, who lives here, who the community you work in. No, none of that matters. All we have to do is increase shareholder value. After that, what happened was, because of the reporting and all that sort of stuff, things became quarterly, stock markets are putting pressure, and all of a sudden you're like, we don't really need to make these we don't need to make these antibiotics in America. What do we need antibiotics for? We'll just make them all in China.
Yes. Well, that worked for a number of decades.
Sure, it worked.
So these first five that we've talked about, a little bit on the last one too, but to me, it seems like people are going to have to pay more for the lighting to get this. If they want a flight to quality, if they want payment terms to lengthen, or if this is going to happen, local production is going to be an advantage. Are we actually going to be willing to pay more, or are we just going to have to pay more?
That's a question that end users and our customers need to answer, frankly. I think the future, the replacement for the neoliberal globalized economy is beyond my pay grade. But that seems to be the question. Is we've been taking cheap luminaires from China. It's driven down our margins. It's hollowed out the lighting industry. This crisis has crystallized that and underlined that. And so we as an industry need to ask questions of ourselves, really, as to how we get back to not a nostalgia play where we go back to the days when we had, factories that made everything from first principles. But we do have to rethink that. And I'm not quite sure how we do that, if I'm honest.
So the tech savvy will prosper. I think the tech savvy always prosper. But I think
Yes.
now what you're saying is that the tech people that are able to bring significant productivity tools in the form of software and services to the table right now to solve the problems you outline in 7, which is we'll have to respond to changing sectors. So I think what you're saying is that hire a software developer, boy, and get yourself really good at selling online and on Amazon and becoming, getting better at having your customers log into you. And you got to focus on that ease of self-service productivity section of your business. Is that what you're saying here? Or you're coming from a lighting design perspective. So how does it work from the lighting design perspective?
Now, the lighting designers are ahead of everybody else. They're used to working online, communicating online, designing at home. That it's not they have coped better. What I have been shocked is that some manufacturers, they're still on Rolodexes, they're still on paper records. If you don't have,
It's true.
you don't have, if you don't have CRM in the cloud, your accounting in the cloud, working from home is really difficult for your team.
Sure.
And I was just shocked that a lot of companies are having really fundamental problems that they don't have this stuff. And,
You should.
And
if you wanted to buy a lighting distribution company, let's say you wanted to buy like a small regional lighting distribution company, maybe 5 million in sales, you're going to find a lot of legacy practices that are going to blow your mind.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah,
you might find a guy that types up packing slips on a typewriter. I'm not kidding you.
No, I never cease to be amazed by some of the stuff. I mean, but that must hurt you now if you're trying to operate in the current conditions using the old school methods. Whoa, good luck with that. So that was the point I was making, really. Yeah. So companies that are up using all the modern and they don't have to invent their own stuff. You just use standard packages, But if you don't have that, whoa, I don't know how you start to digitize your customer records and all that.
I want to add one. So you did 8.
Go on.
I want to go 9. Okay.
Well, I originally wanted to go 10, but I just thought those 8 or 5. Yeah, I'm pushing my luck. So go on. I'll be very grateful to hear number 9.
The reemergence of what's the right way to put this? The reemergence of trade organizations as the hub of knowledge. So what we saw.
Go on. Yeah.
So what we saw from say 2007 to 2019, I started to reverse probably Greg with our episode with Tom Butters.
I
think that's when it switched from the IES. But what you saw was like so institutions are very slow to change, much slower than an industry will change. Right?
Correct.
So the most I'm going to make a joke here, but it's true. The institution most resistant to change in the world is the Catholic Church. That institution is most resistant.
Yeah, I used to be a member.
So, but you take like the IES, which is an institution, in a sense, it's similar to the Catholic Church in a way because it has a higher purpose. Okay, right? It's called to a higher purpose. And so these institutions are very slow to change. And what you saw in the lighting business was almost like the type of conversation where trade associations like NAILD, like Greg and I are members of NAILD and the IS, they've lost their way. They don't, what value is there in association? What's my payback? The idea that someone would join an industry, like someone would sneer at joining an industry associations of colleagues that do the same thing every day. There was a sneeringness towards it now. And in the past, like really in the very recent past, where people would sneer at the IES, the IES doesn't know what they're doing. They're behind the 8 ball. There's other organizations that are better now. And NAILD is, what's my payback from NAILD? I just want to be in a buying group. I don't need to be amongst colleagues by an association run by the people that are the members. We don't need that. We just need a check from somebody to show up. I need to get paid. I think you're going to see people step back and say, you know what, we actually do need a higher purpose for this industry. We do need discussions about things that are not about money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I think UVC is one.
Yes. Yes.
And I think the IES and CIE and all the associations, we turn to them. Guys, what are the guidelines?
Yes.
What should we be doing with this? This is powerful stuff. And yeah, they have recognized that, I think. So I think you're right. And what I would love associations to do is not just, liaise with their members, but to do an outreach, educate the customer somehow. How do we teach customers this is good lighting and that's why it costs that much? And this looks okay, but it's not really. So how do associations help in that education program?
Yes, education is key.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask a little bit about, you're in the European market, we're in North American market.
Mm-hmm.
What are name the big brands in European market of lighting? Top 3, top 5, whatever you come up with.
Oh wow! Okay, well, the big brand is Signify / Philips, because they still use the Philips brand, but as a company they're known as Signify. Osram still big. Osram have been, they're obviously the world's number one in auto lighting for automobiles, not just in Europe but in the US as well, and that must be a challenging market for them. So they're still a Zumtobel is the big architectural brand. They've had their restructuring issues as well in right sizing to the new market. And then you've got your big Fagerhult is big. They own Igazini, obviously. And then you got your big German brands like Trilux, etc. So so you've got a lot of big players on this side of the pond. But big news today was that officially Light and Building Show in Frankfurt is cancelled for this year. And if you told me that at Christmas that there would be no Light and Building exhibition, I would disbelieve you. The Light and Building Show is not just an exhibition; it's the big biennial gathering. It's totemic. It's where the lighting industry flaunts its stuff. It's all about prestige, huge stands. So I think they made the right decision at the right time. I'm sure any of us sitting around that table listening to what they were saying, they would have taken the same decision, because I think a lot of the big brands were going to pull out. And I think it's the right to have no show this year and have it into. But it's a sign of the times that, that show is not going ahead. And it's not just to social distancing. I think a lot of brands are taking advantage of the situation to say, look, let's keep our marketing budget, for this year. Because you have to question every time I went to the Light and Building every couple of years. I look at these, multi-million euro stands and say, wow, could this industry really afford this? Yeah. So you have to ask, is that the right show for the industry, or can it, is this really what we do? Build these massive, massive stands for a week, take them down. I'm speaking of somebody in the exhibition business. I love exhibitions, always have, but so I think that was the right decision. But that is the big news on this side of the board today. It's surprising it's completely the least surprising news ever in one sense, but it's also quite shocking, because it says that is where we've come to. There isn't even a Light and Building show. There probably won't be a Hong Kong show in the autumn. Your education's not going ahead, so I think it kind of, that was where people got together. There was a lot of networking, that was the reset every year, in terms of innovation, that showpiece. That's
I've got a couple more exhibition related questions, but getting back to the brands that you named, have they always been the big brands in Europe or North America or European markets? Sorry.
Well, GE was big once on this side, and they've retrenched. They've sold they obviously own the Tungsram factories in Budapest and all across Hungary, and they've sold those now, and they've then you had Current by GE, and that they have stepped out of Europe effectively now. yeah, same with, as I said, with Osram. They sold they packaged their lamps business into LED bands. It exited from luminaires. They've been making the IoT play with their Lightelligence platform, but that hasn't set the world alight. Sadly, we got very excited about IoT and Li-Fi and indoor location tracking and all the smart stuff that we thought was the future, and I hope it is still the future. But this is a bit of a this may be a bit of a reset for that type of platform.
Sure. I guess you might not know this, but why are they different? Why are the big companies in North America different than the big companies in Europe? I know a couple of them cross over, but why don't they all cross over? Aren't we all doing the same thing? Do you have an answer? I mean, I've always wondered that.
That's a very good question. Well, obviously standards are very different. You've got different standards. You're culturally different. You've got different ways of doing buildings, for instance. You've got more space for your troughters and all the rest of it. Signifies don't have quite a big footprint in North America, obviously. With the brands that they bought, with Cooper and Genlight and all the rest of it. So they have I feel sorry for Signify. I mean, they're good. Their first quarter results weren't bad. 8% profit, and Eric Rondelat. You got a feel for the guy. He's done this, and they got their second quarter. Second quarters are going to be a car crash in this industry. So, So.
So do you think, look ahead 5 years? Do you think there will be leading lighting companies like the ones you named, or will it look a lot different? Will it be more evened out? Will it be top people, low people? What do you think is going to happen?
I think the whole industry, unfortunately, will be smaller in 5 years. If I was to make a prediction, I think you'll have, Signify have been doing a lot of heavy work. They, I think they have. There was general agreement that they've turned the corner. They've put everything in place. I mean, it's been difficult for them. The transition to LEDs has been difficult for them as a leading player. And they have turned. The other brands, yes, they've got the capital, the cash and they've got good management, to make the good decisions and to come out of this hopefully strong, smaller but stronger, hopefully. But some companies won't make it. Yeah, it's as I said, just accelerating all the trends that you have. It's just going to this crisis will accelerate those trends. We will lose some of the, the expression they say about when the tide goes out, who's been swimming without trunks, and I think that's it. If you're very financially fragile, this will just hammer you, and you won't want to take on extra debt. I mean, you see Nordion in Germany. Nordion Lighting went into administration last week. They were losing, according to in 28, they were losing €1 million a month, and we can only speculate that's got worse. So anybody who is not in profit, it isn't going to be pretty, So, but I hope the industry comes out in better shape. It could accelerate creativity and innovation, and I hope it does, and different ways of working. I hope that happens. I'm trying to be optimistic here. Yeah.
No problem. And a couple other questions I just wanted to ask, kind of related to trade shows. So you're the editor of Lux Review.
Correct.
And Lux Review is part of Lux Live, or how does that work? Who owns you guys?
That's right. Yeah. But myself and Gordon Routledge, we launched a company 10 years ago now, and and one thing we were conscious of with the lighting industry didn't really reach out to its customers in terms of its marketing, etc., and its events. So we said, these guys need, the energy managers and facility managers, all these guys, where LEDification was happening, and they didn't really know much about LEDs and what to do and blah blah blah. So we took a view that those guys the lighting industry needs to go out to them and talk to them and tell them what we're about. And so we launched an exhibition, Lux Live, 10 years ago, and here in London. And Lux Review was the complementary online magazine, shall we say. It was a print magazine back then, and that was complementary to Lux Live, and that's since been taken over by Clarion, which is part of Blackstone, based in New York. So it's slated to go ahead in November currently.
So Lux Live is still planned to take place this November.
Yes, currently, but obviously that's in the context of whatever is happening with government guidelines, etc. So,
got it.
So
how do you feel about the future of trade shows? I know you started talking about Light and Build and the surprise about being canceled, but do you think there's going to be less of them? Do you think they're going to go away altogether? Are they going to change drastically? What are we going to be seeing?
I don't think face-to-face will ever go away. I know we're doing the Zoom thing and all the rest of it, but, if you want to trust people, spend money, do serious stuff, you do need to have that human element. And I think I think it's going to become more, business travel may decline, but I think, those times when you do hook up with people will be more important. And, you can't replicate that, I don't think.
You know what? The final phase of all this, and this is well beyond lighting as well, and I think it's time to start thinking about it. You're an Irishman, so you have a lot of sentimentality. The land of poets and scholars and all that sort of stuff, right? So there's you'll feel it first. There's going to be the descending of sadness over all this soon. Like right now, you have people that are COVIDians and convidians and, paranoid of the virus and, completely pissed off that they can't go to the pub and have a beer. And so you got these two sides. I think people need to come together in the middle over something, unfortunately, that all of this is very sad, actually. And we need to mourn the loss of this time. People's graduations, weddings, funerals, all these events, everything. There needs to be the appropriate amount of sadness because, people are angry or scared, and both of those reactions are no longer appropriate. And if we don't move to sadness, then we can't forgive. We can't say, hey, it's okay that you did this and you screwed up, or you went too far, or you didn't go far enough, or whatever the problem ends up being when we do the accounting of all this stuff that's happened. Society needs to step back and say, we're going back to face-to-face meetings. Okay? Walking around with masks on and gloves is ridiculous. Okay? I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous. It really is. And it's not healthy either. Okay? It's not good for your skin to wear a mask all day. It's not good to have this wet shit in front of your face all day. Wearing gloves all day. It's not healthy. You need, but all that being said, it's not emotionally healthy. I mean, I was at a Baskin Robbins the other day, Greg, and there's all these people that went into Baskin Robbins was essential. It was still open on a hot day serving ice cream. People are going in there with masks on, buying an ice cream, being handed an ice cream cone, pulling down their mask outside, and eating an ice cream cone with rubber. I wanted to take pictures of them. I said, this is completely insane.
Yeah.
Right? Standing outside Baskin Robbins, it's 20, you're Celsius, right, Ray? So 21 degrees Celsius in Canada, and it's nice. Whatever that is, 72 in Fahrenheit there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
In your crazy Fahrenheit system. But sitting there pulling down their masks to eat ice cream standing 6 feet apart. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's sad. It's funny because it's sad, though. And so we need to be sad about this. We need to be sad that we didn't get to see our friends at Light Fair. We need to be sad that people are pulling down masks and eating ice cream. And we need to get rid of the paranoia and the fear and all this kind of thing. And however we get out of it, vaccines or whatever the powers that be, it's time for sadness about this, Ray. And people don't have the appropriate amount of that yet. Because there's only two reactions. People are going to become sad or they're going to get really angry. And I think sadness is better. And we mourn it. We grieve this period of time. We come up with a solution to the problem, and then we fire up the NAILED conference again, fire up the NAILED convention. We go back to Germany and we put our stake in the ground and say, we're not backing down from this, man. We got to get together.
Yeah. Oh, I think that will happen. It's a very interesting idea about the collective bereavement, and I don't know how you make that happen or how you bring that together, but that's a really interesting point that we will look back nostalgically at the years before this, and we will eventually get back, and we will eventually recover and rebuild and re-strengthen. How long that takes is anybody's guess. But that's new to me, that interesting point of a collective sadness and I suppose it's like that process you have to go through, isn't it? Denial,
the 5
acceptance,
stages of grief or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anger's in there, I think.
Yeah. Well, the first news is like most people are in denial that their lives have been ruined. Okay. Like, and I mean, people say, "Oh no, my life's not ruined." Actually, you know what? That the hockey championship every year matters. Actually, that matters. It's an important ritual for our society. All these little the Little League hockey championships, the Ontario Hockey League, the NHL, all these things are important, man. They matter, and it's sad that they're over. And they were destroyed. But I know how we get out of it. Very simple. And I'm going to say something that might be considered controversial, but you can't follow science. You can't follow science. You can only follow leaders. And we need to get off our ass and elect good leaders. Go vote. Care about elections. Make sure you vote. And so that we have good leaders so we can get the hell out of this situation. Because we can't, we're just going to follow the science. I'm sorry, Premier of Ontario. That's not science. That's a PowerPoint presentation. Okay? That's called PowerPoint. Okay? It's not science. Just because you put it on a piece of paper and hold it up. Okay? Where's the leadership, man? Where's the courage? Where's the decisive action? Where are the trade-offs? That's what science will help you make the right trade-offs. You don't follow it. Say, follow the science. I'm going to follow the science. Like, yeah, so did Nazis. They followed their science, and that was their science. They followed it. No, leadership is what we need.
So what is happening in Canada? Is that are they going to ease the lockdown? What is it sort of? Is your point that it's not happening fast enough, the lifting of the lockdown, or that
no, it's not that fast or slow. There's a massive vacuum of leadership. Okay. Now, I believe in democracy 100%, but there's a little bit of a problem with democracy. And that is that democracies get the leaders they deserve. You understand what I mean? And they get the leaders that when people don't think about voting, when they don't make their decisions the right way, this is when you have an actual crisis, okay? You need good leaders. And in Canada, what we have is a bunch of clowns. In my province and in the federal government. Now, I'm not saying, look, this is not political to me. One of them is a conservative, the other one's a liberal, okay? And they're both clowns. And they have no courage, there's no direction, there's no spirit of leadership. And they're always follow the science and this sort of stuff. And then the prime minister says you can't go to your cottage, and then he swims out to his cottage. All animals are equal. Like some animals are more equal than other animals, right? You understand what I mean? And that's not leadership, man.
Well, today in the UK, one of the major professors and scientists who came up with the whole modelling of the progress of the virus in the UK has had to resign because he was visiting his mistress. And wasn't observing social distancing. So that's the big news story here. But yes, and in Scotland, the chief medical advisor was visiting her second home and had to resign when the press found out about it.
Yeah, and good job for the press. Great job, I would say. Good job. Yeah. And I would say also on top of that, like, the the hypocrisy and the sneering contempt from some of the leaders, is very, very concerning to me. You know, the way that they speak to us, and the, you know, I'm very concerned about whether or not you're a Convidian or a Covidian, whatever side you believe in or whatever. It's time for these whether or not. So you either failed to save us from this virus or you locked us down unnecessarily. It's either one or the other. Okay, so you need to come out and enough of this sneering stay home nonsense and say, you know what? I'm sorry, we screwed up. We screwed this up. This is where we went wrong. And back on March 10th, we should have done this, but we didn't. And then, in the future, this is how we're going to handle it. And that's leadership. This confirmation bias, I couldn't have been wrong, spin it. This is people's lives. This is not about spinning. Either people are dying like crazy from this, or you've locked down healthy people unnecessarily and ruined their lives. This is not about the spin anymore. Oh, let's spin it like this, and then we still get to be in charge. Guess what? Canada doesn't need Justin Trudeau, actually, to be the leader. We don't need you. We don't need Boris Johnson. We don't need Donald Trump. We don't need Doug Ford. We got other people here. So if you could just come out and say where you screwed up, be very appreciated, actually, right now. Because people are locked in their homes. It's enough. You understand what I mean? I'm sorry, I went off the lighting.
I would be amazed and impressed if you could get a politician to say, "Oh yeah, we screwed up on that." You know.
But that's what's necessary now.
It would be great, but I don't think that's going to happen, frankly, unfortunately. But ironically, their standing would probably go up if they said, "Yeah, we made some mistakes, we did our best." Yeah, ironically, people were grown up to say, "Okay, fair enough." You know.
So the question is this, right? The question is this: do you think people are actually stupid, or do you think they're smart? Most people.
Most people have their own. They look at their own needs and their own situation and make their own individual decision. I think there was an epidemiologist in the UK who said, what we've got to do is every individual person has to have their own exit strategy. The government can open the pubs, the government can open restaurants, the government can, let airlines fly and they can have social distance, but it's up to each individual. What is your degree of risk? What are you prepared to do? How are you prepared to get on with your life in some ways? And I think there's a bit of truth in that, isn't there, really? Is how are you going to live the next 18 months, hopefully, before they get a vaccine?
I think people are smart. I think most people...
Well, then they can make their own decisions and take risks, take an appropriate risk. We take risks every day, no matter what it is, whether it's road safety or whatever. The government has certain rules that we all agree to go by, but we all take greater or lesser risks, and we have different attitudes to that, and that's fine.
So we should end the podcast with how many politicians does it take to screw in a forget it. Ray, thank you for being a guest on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, man.
Great to be on with you guys. Yeah, very interesting and very stimulating. Thank you.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ray.
We do the light thing. We do the right thing. That's Satco. And that logo came out, the new tagline, and that from Satco. And I loved it right away because I know the people at Satco. And I know when they say that, they mean it. But then when I saw the documentary, The Starfish, I felt it. I saw the soul. I saw the heart of the company. Herbert Gilden. Check out the documentary, folks. It's an unbelievable story of hope and beauty. It really, really is, Greg. I can't say anything more.
Yeah, and I think it was a perfect way, and at least from our own experience of learning about Satco's. First, we went there and we felt it, and then you watched it and you see it, and you really know who they are, why they are leaders in lighting, and why they continue to be and have innovative product, great service, great people. Satco.
Yeah, just a great family business, great American story. Go to satco.com, at satco.com. We do, I'm going to say it, I'm in the Satco family. We do the light thing. We do the right thing. Check it out. Folks, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, where all the connections that we're talking about are made, or through that association. Why should I join Nailed? I need a payback. What's the payback? Get your bean counter out of the room. Okay? No accountants allowed. We don't need any bean counters. And we want to talk to you distributors, about what the future of lighting distribution is going to be about. We want to carve out that future as a group, as leaders, as business owners. We want to create a meeting of the minds. We want to move forward together as competitors, but also as colleagues. And there's no price on that. You don't get paid for that. It's not what it's about. You go to naild.org, fill out your application, you send it over to us, and you join the conversation. naild.org. And, of course, Ray Molony, Greg, editor of the Lux Review. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, great discussion on the future of lighting, where we're headed, so be ready for it.
Or it just happened.
Or
it happened. The end. Yeah, you're a little confused, son. How many commercials have you done today? So, thank you for listening, folks. Or is this the beginning? Did I lose it?
Be ready for the future, not be ready for the thing you just listened to. So I'm saying,
okay,
you listen to it, now you got to be ready for the future of lighting, okay?
Okay, woo! Because that kind of smoked me out there. I thought we were opening the show. We're closing the show. Thanks for listening, folks. We love you. Bye for now.
Written on the rectory wall, there's a sign there for all. You are lost, Lord is there to find you.